Welcome back to Law News Network. We were just watching some testimony from Detective Cummings from last week, and his testimony was really key in this whole thing. I want to bring in one of our friends here at Law News, Kathy Russin, who owns Court Chatter, which is a website that has trial watchers galore, and they've been watching this trial and the last Aaron Hernandez trial for some time. Kathy, are you there with me?
I am. Hi, Heather.
It's so good to see you, and we have Stephanie here too. She may pop in with some questions. So tell me, what do you think about today? I mean, were you as bored with it as it seems that most of the people on our chat room were?
Yes. Well, first of all, anytime that a fingerprint examiner comes on, a cell phone expert, that wasn't today, but those type of witnesses tend to get a little boring, but especially today when all the fingerprint examiner was on there telling us is what they didn't find.
That's right. I mean, it seems like a whole lot of long testimony just to say, and we ended up with nothing.
Right. Exactly.
Now,
we found nothing. There was no evidence of who the shooter was on the gun.
We also heard from the cross-examination of the ballistics experts has been done by Baden, and I know that you have some history of following her because she was involved in some other quite well-known trials. What do you think of her as far as her cross-examination techniques?
Well, look, she's a great defense attorney. Trial watchers in general do not care for her. She can be abrasive. And we saw that with her cross-examination style. She just hits hard and goes with her next question before the witness is done answering. And so she can talk over, and we saw him say, please don't interrupt me. I'm still trying to answer your last question. And she got exactly what she wanted, and she wanted him to get defensive and get testy. She wanted the jury to see that, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, because he was pretty likable, and he was definitely, interacting with the jury well and drawing pictures, which we know juries like. So she definitely got him sort of, off his heels a little bit, which is effective to do with a witness who's really making friends with the jury.
Exactly. I mean, look, that's cross-examination on both sides, not just defense attorneys.
That's right.
That's what you want on cross-examination, and that's what she was doing. Like I said, trial watchers know her. She was on Casey Anthony's team. She represented Phil Spector, the famous movie producer, NBA basketball player Jason Williams. Mm-hmm. We have seen her over and over again. She has a famous husband.
That's right.
So we know about her. We have seen her, and she can be abrasive. But man, I tweeted out, this is her wheelhouse.
Yes.
She knows about forensics. She knows about ballistics, and that's why she was just hard hitting those questions to him over and over and quickly, and he was just like stumbling over his answers.
Well, and the most recent witness that we just heard from, Detective Tyrone Camper, he is talking about the spin of the bullets and collecting the casings. We know that she's going to be the one cross-examining him as well because she's the one who's been objecting. What do you anticipate from her?
It's just more of the same.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we knew, and I say we, those of us who knew this case going in, and a lot of people may not have known the ins and outs of this particular case against Hernandez going in,
right.
But there's not a lot of evidence against him. This isn't the same case as the old Lloyd case. This is what I've talked about before on this show, that, trial watchers needed to watch this case closely. This isn't open shut. This case really hinges on Alexander Bradley,
right,
who... that's why this case was unsolved until the old Lloyd investigation.
That's right.
This case was unsolved because they didn't know who did it. And so this other stuff coming in is not pointing to Aaron Hernandez. Now, you can add up some of the things, okay, an SUV like his that night, right. And he did have interaction with the victims earlier in the night. And the SUV, after he drove it that night, wasn't seen again, and then it was hidden at his cousin's house, and the dealership guy said that he never brought it back again. You can add those things up. That's not enough for a conviction, in my opinion.
Right.
So there are some things, but the things about the gun and the bullets aren't placing a murder weapon necessarily. There is a connection, you could say, back to Hernandez with that gun, and they may get there.
Yeah, but I was just going to say that there's arguably a connection, but the jury hasn't heard that yet. We've seen it in the newspapers and from the last trial, but this jury doesn't know any of that. And for right now, they must be wondering what the heck is the connection. I know Stephanie had a question for you.
Well, it really ties off exactly what we were discussing right now. I actually wanted to ask you, how do you think that the jury is, I guess, taking on this information right now and this evidence? Do you think it's boding well for the prosecution or not?
No, not this evidence isn't. And you got to remember, the jury member, just like you said, they don't know what we know.
Right.
They are also just what we say lay people, right?
Right.
So they don't know. They're not all fascinating, but they're not experts, and they're not fascinated with following trials and cases.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just sitting back like, hey, you're telling us a lot of what you don't have against him, but this is what we like to say about the prosecution striking first, as we say.
Right.
The defense is going to bring up that what they don't have against him, so they're going to go ahead and bring it up. This is what they say the murder weapon is, so they had to put the fingerprint guy on to say that they don't have the fingerprints of Aaron Hernandez, because the defense was obviously going to say that.
That's right.
So, they have to put him on to do that. It's kind of like, look, we're going to put all our cards on the table.
Right.
They'll wrap, they'll put it up, they'll tie it all up in a nice package for the jury eventually. But right now, the jury's just kind of like, okay.
Now, what do you think about the tattoo? We heard just right before lunch this little aside between the judge talking about scheduling, and they talked about the tattoo, calling a tattoo artist. I know I've read quite a bit about how the tattoos might fit in. How do you think that will play in this trial?
Well, I can't wait for that.
Me either.
So they say that he's commemorated his murders with his tattoos, and the one that plays into this trial, according to the prosecution, is a tattoo of the gun, the same style of gun used in these murders, with 5 bullets, 5 bullets in the chamber, I think, and there were 5 bullets shot in this case, saying "God forgives." And it was written backwards so you can read it in a mirror. That he got that following these murders. Yeah. And that he got another one following the Alexander Bradley shooting, which, by the way, he's charged with in this case.
That's right.
And those 2 tattoos, the judge had ruled that he will hear from the tattoo artist on this. And the one from Alexander Bradley is a different style of gun, the semi-automatic, that tattoo, and that is the one used in the Alexander Bradley shooting. And he got it following that one. So they really look like they tie in. It really looks like maybe he did get those tattoos following these 2 shootings.
Yeah, I mean, that some of the evidence might be even stronger than what's usually the strongest for the prosecution, which is all this ballistic evidence. This might be enough of a story to sort of wrap things up. Before we let you go, Kathy, I want to do a little left turn here and talk about War Machine, because we do have the War Machine trial continuing this afternoon. We've had this issue, which I know is relatively unusual, where some witnesses have asked not to be identified, and so we've not been able to stream their testimony, and I think more of that's going to happen today. But what do you think of that case so far? Do you think the defense has made any headway whatsoever?
Yeah, I think they have. I think that going into it with just seeing the pictures of her, you think, oh, how could he possibly have a defense?
Right.
But I do think there's a defense to attempted murder.
Yep.
And I think that charge might be overreaching. Mm-hmm. Now, people are going to say he was an MMA fighter, and so his hands are murder weapons. But showing that she sent a text to him right before, basically, now, maybe she didn't invite him over, but she was inviting him over, sort of, sending a picture of her nude body saying this is yours, when she's with another man in her apartment, and so his mind is like, she's this is mine and we're still together and I'm coming over, and so it kind of plays into, is she afraid of him, like she's testifying, if she's just barely sending that to him. Now there's no way he's going to get out of any kind of assault charges. There's no way, but I don't think he's defending that, quite frankly.
I agree with you 100%, Kathy. When even during the openings and I was looking at this case, I was like, he's just trying to defend the kidnapping the attempted murder, and probably the rape. Because
Yeah.
those have the longest sentences.
Right.
We know he's rejected some plea deals, and the plea deals would have had him have time for those offenses. So if he can somehow escape those, he's made a good decision in rejecting the plea deal.
Yeah, and there's more to it than just that one text that I mentioned. There are other showing texts back and forth between them. This was a dysfunctional relationship for sure.
For sure.
Between the two of them, and I'm not excusing anything that he did. But he's very abusive. This relationship was definitely abusive. But I'm just saying, the question was, has the defense made headway? And I believe that they probably have made some headway.
Now, what do you think about the fact we anticipate, and we don't know for sure, but we anticipate hearing from a lot of medical experts this week about some PTSD or concussions or this use of steroids and how that may have impacted him? I have two questions for you about that. One is that how do you think that will fly? And two, do the watchers enjoy watching medical experts, or do they find it as boring as the ballistic experts?
I don't want to speak for 100% of the watchers, but the majority, I don't want to say they think it's bunk, but they don't like a lot of that kind of defense, especially when they see the pictures.
Right. So do you think the same of the jury? Do you think that the jury is going to think that these medical testimony is sort of not going to overcome those terrible pictures?
I would say that juries are pretty thorough when they get into a jury room.
Yep.
So they'll go over it, and they'll probably take some of that into consideration about why did he act the way he does, and what makes a person that says he loves her act the way he does. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that'll excuse anything.
Yeah, I think that I think that those pictures in her testimony, I mean, she made a wonderfully strong, credible, just a really impressive witness. Now, there's been a little bit of talk about the fact that he may still testify. Do you think there's any chance in heck that that's going to happen, Kathy?
No.
No, me either.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be just too dangerous, especially someone who seems to be have some issues with impulse control, given that he was blowing kisses at the prosecutor Jacqueline Bluth during the pretrial hearings.
And visibly upset when Christie was testifying, and he's been all over the place, just sitting at the defense table.
Right. Well, Kathy, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to talk to Stephanie a little bit more about the Aaron Hernandez, but I wanted to thank you so much for being with us again today, and we'll be sure to have you back later on this week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks.
So she's got such good instincts for this stuff,
Absolutely.
having followed it for so long. But I want to